Well, good evening, everybody. I want to introduce you to my blog post, Waiting on God, Lessons from Moses, Choosing to Wait, Part 1. To begin with, I want to share with you an incident that I observed today that illustrates some of what I'm going to be talking about. And that is, today while I was out having a good time, riding down the hills like I enjoy doing, mountain boarding, I noticed that some young men had got themselves in a pickle. And they'd been having a good time because I could hear them obviously enjoying themselves. They were screaming, yelling, having a good time. And they were playing this game called Frisbee golf. And what had happened is they got into their last target or last spot, putt spot, and one of them threw a disc golf up and it found itself about 25 feet above the ground in the limb of a rather large pine tree. And I was running up down the hill, coming back down. I noticed those poor guys, they were throwing anything they could find at the tree, branches, bottles, whatever they had, to try to shake it loose so their Frisbee golf would come back down so they could get it and finish up their game. So that went on for 10 or 15 minutes. And I actually admired them because they were trying to help each other and they didn't give up. Then it dawned on me, well, you know, they've got the right idea, but they don't really have what they need to accomplish this task. And I said, what they need is a rope, because they've got things to throw, but they don't have any way to put force on that limb to shake it to make it come down. So sure enough, I happen to have a rope in the car. So I just nonchalantly picked it up when I went to the top of the hill, rode back down the hill, and threw it at the guy. I said, here, guys, try this, and stepped back and watched them. You know what was amazing? That young man instinctively knew what to do. He took the rope, he tied it up, he had a rather heavy object, he threw it up. It took him about 3 or 4 tries, but he finally got it. He looped it around that limb, took that rope, pulled it on both sides, and guess what? His Frisbee golf came down. And that was fun to watch. But it reminds me of how we are sometimes. You know, we try to accomplish things by throwing things at problems in our life, when really all you need is a rope. And in this case, the rope was all that young man and his group of friends needed. And once they had the right tool, they got their mission accomplished. So I hope to encourage you as you're reading this blog and we're looking at Moses. And what Moses did and what this blog focuses on mainly, I give you a quick overview of Moses, just wanted to give you some main points. But then I move on to the 3 things that Moses turned away from in order for him to follow God. Because there's things that will get in our way. All right, first of all, Moses turned away from his position as a potential future pharaoh or governor or advisor. In Egypt, you know, Moses, there was a lot of opportunity for Moses because of him being found as a baby, right? And being adopted in the Pharaoh's household. But what's amazing is he gave up that guaranteed place of power, prestige, as a prince of Egypt, right? And 40 years old, he saw that something was being done where an Egyptian was abusing a Hebrew. He immediately took action. Of course, as we later see that action causes him to be in the desert for 40 years. But nonetheless, he cared enough to try and do something. Trouble was he didn't go about it in the right way. And it failed. But you see, God did not give up on Moses. Think about it. Sometimes we feel like that God's given up on us and our faith gets weak, but really it's not God, it's our lack of faith. Second thing, he gave up. And we notice from Hebrews, the book of Hebrews talks about this in chapter 11, when it talks about faith and having faith in him, is this, that Moses turned away from all the different pleasures of sin. Now, as somebody who was very wealthy in Egypt, he would have had access to all types of alcohol, parties, women, pretty much anything he wanted he could have. But you know what's amazing is there was something about Moses that he didn't feel fulfilled in all of that, much like us. You know, we get all caught up in our careers, in our houses, in our friendships, in our relationships, but the reality is none of that really can fulfill you. All right, the third thing he turned away from as well. And this is something that's a trap for us as well today, and that is from material wealth and prosperity. If you think about it, had he remained in Egypt, he could have been incredibly wealthy. But you see, Moses was somehow And the scriptures don't really tell us how this happened, so we can only guess and speculate on it. But there was somehow, some way, that there was a yearning in Moses' heart. And what was amazing is when God came to him at the burning bush and spoke to him and gave him a task, even though he did not want to do it, as you see from his excuses he gave, there was still a desire to follow God. And I hope that you have that desire as well. You know, the whole point of my blog is to encourage you. And while sometimes it may seem like I'm being harsh toward various things I write that because we need these harsh reminders. I know I certainly need harsh reminders that life isn't about me. It isn't about my silly attempts of throwing things at the tree of life when it doesn't work my way. You know, we all are inadequate. And it's humbling to recognize that and try to live that way where I need God and you do too. And that is one of the blessings, is when we realize that and when we can trust God to fulfill us and bring joy into our life. I wanted to conclude this introduction with a warning from Larry Crabb here, where he talks about how the enemy of our soul works against us. So I'm going to read this quote to you. It's rather long for me to try and put, so I wanted to include this here. It says, "One of the devil's most insidiously compelling strategy is to turn us away from God and toward sin by deluding us into thinking, if only at a critical moment of decision, that sexual pleasure, perhaps a drug-induced buzz, or some available route to immediate comfort will satisfy the thirst we most long to quench. In order to pull off deception, Satan, with his devilish wisdom, works to never let us discover, especially in that critical moment, the human thirst alive in our inmost being that can be touched with true joy only from knowing God's love well enough to want to pass it on to others." Supernatural discernment was needed for Moses to recognize that such fleeting pleasures were a snare, not a blessing. Delights that warred against his soul. God was at work shaping Moses to embrace his destiny as he is in each of our lives. Moses came to see, as must we, that the joy he was designed to experience was found entirely in God's plan, and that joy must be God's doing. Moses waited, and must we if we're to live as true disciples of Jesus Christ. God bless you.